Commander Yuna's crystalline body trembled as she stared at the impossible readings on her control panel. The Eternal Vigil had been drifting through dead space for months, cataloging another lifeless sector consumed by the void harvest. But this yellow star refused to follow the pattern that had held true for 3 millennia. "Run the scan again," she ordered, her voice creating harmonic frequencies that resonated through the ship's crystal matrix. Her science officer, a younger Nexari named Kale, flickered with nervous energy as his translucent form bent over the instruments. "The readings are consistent, Commander. Star designation Saltari shows not only stable fusion, but increased luminosity over the past 50 rotations, and there's more." Kale's voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm detecting electromagnetic transmissions from the 3rd planet." Yuna felt her core temperature drop. Radio signals meant active technology. Active technology meant living civilizations. Living civilizations were supposed to be extinct in the Outer Rim. She moved to the main viewer, her feet clicking against the crystal deck plates. The star burned golden and fierce in the distance, surrounded by 8 planets in stable orbits. It looked so ordinary, so unremarkable. How had something so small survived what had destroyed the mighty Thalan Empire and the ancient builders? "Commander, the signals are getting stronger," Kale reported. "Multiple transmission sources across the 3rd planet. They're using primitive radio frequencies, but the patterns suggest organized communication networks. On the 3rd planet, in a bunker buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain Minho received the alert he'd been expecting for 30 years. His weathered face remained calm as he read the report from the orbital sensors. An alien vessel had appeared at the edge of the solar system, running what appeared to be deep space scans. "G1, are you getting this?" he called to his communications officer, a young woman with sharp eyes who'd spent her entire career preparing for this moment. "Yes, sir. Single vessel, unknown configuration. They've been scanning our sun for the past 6 hours. G1's fingers danced over her console. "Sir, I'm also detecting unusual energy patterns from the outer system. Something big is moving out there." Minho nodded grimly. The plan had worked perfectly for decades, but he'd always known this day would come. Humanity had bought itself time, but time was running out. "Open a channel to all defense stations. Tell them to prepare for possible contact protocols. And G1." He paused, looking out at the star-filled sky through the bunker's reinforced windows. "Make sure our guest knows we're home." The first transmission was elegant in its simplicity. Mathematical constants, prime numbers, then basic astronomical data about the solar system. Jiwan smiled as she watched the alien vessel's reaction on the sensors. They'd stopped their scans immediately and were now broadcasting their own mathematical sequences in response. "They're trying to establish communication protocols," she reported. "Standard first contact procedures, just like the old manuals predicted." But Minho wasn't watching the peaceful exchange. His attention was focused on the long-range sensors, showing disturbances in the outer solar system. Dark energy signatures were building beyond Neptune's orbit, the same signatures that had preceded the deaths of 1,000 worlds. Commander Yuna felt a mixture of excitement and terror as the primitive radio signals resolved into structured mathematical communication. These beings, whatever they were, possessed intelligence and technology. But how had they survived in a sector that should have been harvested decades ago? "Commander, I'm reading massive energy distortions in the outer system," Kale announced, his crystalline form now pulsing with alarm. The patterns match archived data from void harvest manifestations. Yuna's blood turned to ice. If the entity was stirring, it meant their communication with the unknown species had been detected. The void harvest was drawn to signs of active civilization, like a cosmic predator sensing movement. "Begin emergency protocols. Transmit our warning to the inhabited planet immediately." She turned to the communications array, her mind racing. These people had no idea what was coming for them. Use every frequency they've demonstrated. They need to know what's approaching their world. The warning transmission from the Nexari ship arrived at Earth's listening posts within minutes. Complex, mathematical sequences that gradually resolved into star charts, then images of dead worlds, then finally a crude but unmistakable representation of something vast and dark moving between the stars. Ji-won's face went pale as she decoded the message. Sir, they're trying to warn us about something. The energy patterns they're describing match our deep space sensor readings exactly. Minho stood slowly, his joints protesting after hours at his station. Around him, the bunker's emergency lights began flashing as automated systems detected the approaching threat. The deception that had protected humanity for 3 decades was finally failing. Send reply to our Nexari friends, he ordered, his voice steady, despite the magnitude of what was coming. Tell them we appreciate the warning. Tell them we've been expecting this day for a very long time. In the cold depths beyond Neptune, tendrils of pure darkness began to unfurl like the petals of some cosmic flower. The void harvest had slept for decades, content that this system held nothing of interest. But the detection of interspecies communication had awakened. Something ancient and hungry, the long night, was about to discover that humanity had spent its reprieve preparing for war. The ancient council chamber felt different today. For the first time in centuries, hope mixed with the familiar taste of fear in the recycled air. Commander Yuno watched the 5 humans sit quietly at their makeshift table, looking so small among the towering crystalline forms and swirling energy beings that made up the Galactic Council. Dr. Hyeon-soo was the first to speak. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and calm eyes that seemed to hold secrets. Her translation device hummed softly as she addressed the assembled representatives of 3 dying civilizations. You want to know how we survived, she said simply. The answer will surprise you. We did not run. We did not hide. We stood and fought, but not in the way you might think. The Kethvalium Queen buzzed with irritation. Her massive insect form towered over the human delegation, compound eyes glittering with doubt. 10,000 smaller voices whispered through her primary consciousness, all expressing the same disbelief. These soft, short-lived creatures claimed to have succeeded where the greatest minds in galactic history had failed. Impossible, the Queen's voices chorused. Your species lacks the technology. You have no quantum computers, no stellar engineering capabilities, no advanced energy manipulation. How could primitives accomplish what we could not? Captain Sunho smiled and activated a small device on the table. A holographic image appeared above the gathered council members, showing the Sol system in perfect detail. The human captain was younger than Dr. Hyeon-soo, with steady hands and the bearing of someone who had spent years preparing for this moment. While your civilizations built deeper bunkers and stronger shields, we studied our enemy, he explained. We learned how it hunts. The void harvest feeds on stellar energy, but only from stars burning in their natural state. It seeks out healthy, stable fusion reactions. The hologram zoomed in on Sol, showing massive metallic structures wrapped around the star like a cage. Artificial solar storms raged across the surface, while enormous collectors channeled the excess energy into storage, banks hidden throughout the system. We made our star look sick, Engineer QME added. She was the youngest of the human delegation, with oil-stained hands and bright eyes full of technical knowledge. To the void harvest's senses, Sol appears to be a dying star, already drained of useful energy. Why waste time on something that offers no food? The Nexari representative, a being of living crystal named Harmony of Light, chimed with confusion. But the energy requirements for such a deception would be enormous. How do you power your civilization while hiding your star's true output? Dr. Hyeon-soo gestured to the hologram, which now showed vast underground complexes, honeycombing Earth and the other planets. We went underground. Every major city, every industrial center, every population hub was relocated beneath the surface. We learned to live in the dark so our star could pretend to be dark too. The Luminal Collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, flickered with rapid patterns of light that indicated extreme agitation. The logistics alone would be impossible for a pre-spaceflight civilization. You speak of moving billions of individuals, restructuring your entire infrastructure, hiding the energy signatures of an active industrial society. Captain Sunho nodded grimly. It took 30 years. 3 decades of every human working toward a single goal. We told our children bedtime stories about the monster in the dark, and taught them that the only way to survive was to become invisible. The hologram shifted to show massive construction projects spanning the entire solar system, asteroid mining operations, orbital manufacturing facilities, and defensive installations, all carefully shielded and disguised to appear as space debris to casual observation. But hiding was never our final goal, Dr. Hyensu continued. While we built our deception, we also studied the enemy. We learned its patterns, its feeding habits, its weaknesses. We discovered something your advanced civilizations missed because you were too busy running. The chamber fell silent, except for the soft humming of life support systems. Even the Keth Volume Queen's 1,000 voices went quiet. The void harvest can be hurt, Engineer Kyung-mi said simply. It feels pain. It can be damaged. And if it can be damaged, it can be killed. In the darkest corner of the chamber, something stirred. Elder Wisdom of Stars had been silent throughout the entire presentation, his ancient form barely visible in the shadows. He was the last survivor of the first people, a race so old they remembered the galaxy before the long night began. Show them, the elder whispered, his voice carrying harmonics that spoke of eons of accumulated wisdom. Show them what you have built to fight the darkness. The hologram changed one final time, revealing the true scope of humanity's preparations. Hidden throughout the solar system were weapons of unimaginable scale, stellar manipulation devices, capable of turning stars into directed energy weapons, mass drivers that could accelerate entire asteroids to near light speed. And at the center of it all, a massive construction project surrounding Sol itself. We call it Project Prometheus, Dr. Hyensu said quietly. We're going to teach the galaxy how to fight back, but we need your help. The void harvest is already moving toward our system. The deception is failing. If we're going to save what's left of galactic civilization, we need to act now. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council began to plan an offensive against the darkness that had consumed their worlds. The command deck of the New Dawn had never seen anything like this before. Admiral Taeyun watched in amazement as beings who had been enemies for centuries worked together at the same control stations. Onyxeti Crystalbean carefully grew computing circuits while a human engineer welded metal supports around them. Nearby, a Keth Volume bioarchitect shaped living metal into precise instruments, while explaining the process to fascinated human technicians. This is either the beginning of a new age or the end of everything, the Admiral muttered to himself as he studied the massive star map floating above the central table. Most of the galaxy glowed red, marking systems already consumed by the void harvest. Yellow dots showed systems that were dying slowly. Only a handful of green lights remained. Scattered like rare gems across the spiral arms, Dr. Yoonji stepped forward, her lab coat stained with the residue from working with alien technologies. She had spent weeks learning to communicate with the different species, and now served as the chief translator for the combined fleet. Her voice carried clearly across the busy command center as she began to explain humanity's desperate plan. We call it Project Prometheus, after the ancient human story of stealing fire from the gods, she announced. But instead of stealing fire, we will create it. We will turn dying stars into weapons that can hurt the void harvest. The alien representatives gathered closer to hear the details. Commander Yuna translated for the other Nexari officers, her crystal body chiming with harmonic frequencies. The Ket-volume delegation buzzed among themselves with thousands of tiny voices discussing the implications. Captain Minho activated the technical display, showing a cross-section of a typical star system. The void harvest feeds slowly, draining stars over many years. But if we force a star to collapse quickly, all that energy releases at once in a directed beam. Think of it like turning a dying campfire into a focused laser. Nexari Counselor Harmony of Light stepped back, her crystalline form growing dimmer with shock. You speak of destroying entire star systems. Those stars have burned for billions of years. The violence you propose goes against everything we believe about preserving life. There is no life left in those systems. Admiral Tayun replied firmly. The void harvest has already killed everything there. We are simply using the corpses as weapons to fight back. Engineer Kung Sik brought up detailed technical specifications on the holographic display. He was a quiet man who preferred working with machines too, talking with people. But the crisis had forced him to become a teacher for alien engineers who thought in completely different ways. The process requires perfect timing, he explained, pointing to complex diagrams that showed stellar compression devices. We install these devices around a dying star. Human fusion technology provides the initial compression, Nexari energy. Crystals focus the collapse into a directed beam. Ket-volume biological computers calculate the exact timing needed to hit our target. The Luminal Collective representative flickered with patterns of deep concern. The energy requirements for such devices would be enormous. How do you power them? We harvest energy from the dying stars themselves, Dr. Yunji answered. It is like using a fire to start a bigger fire. The star provides the power for its own transformation into a weapon. Admiral Taeon zoomed the display to show their first target. Kepler 442 was once home to 3 planets with thriving ecosystems. The void harvest began feeding on it 12 years ago. The star is now at 60% of its original energy output, and the planets are frozen wastelands. The star looked sad and dim compared to the bright yellow of Earth's sun. Dark spots covered its surface, where the void harvest had been slowly draining its life force. But it still contained enough energy to serve their desperate purpose. We begin installation of the compression devices tomorrow, Captain Minho announced. Combined fleets from all our species will work together. This has never been attempted before, so we are learning as we go. The work began immediately. Human ships capable of precision engineering flew alongside Nexori crystal vessels that could manipulate energy fields. Ket-volume bioships contributed, living computers that could adapt and learn from the changing conditions around the dying star. Engineer Kyung Sik supervised the installation of the first compression device, a massive ring of metal and crystal that would encircle the star's equator. Remember, we only get one chance at this, he warned the mixed crews. If the compression happens too fast, the star explodes randomly. Too slow, and the void harvest will sense what we are doing and move to stop us. Dr. Yunji monitored the energy readings as the device powered up for the first time. All readings are within acceptable ranges, she reported. The star is responding to the compression field. We should be ready to fire within 72 hours. But in the empty void between galaxies, something ancient and vast felt the unusual activity around the dying star. The void harvest had been content to feed slowly on the remaining systems, but this new behavior from its food sources was disturbing. For the first time in millennia, prey was acting like predator. Tendrils of dark energy began moving through space, converging on the Kepler 442 system. The entity's vast consciousness focused its attention on this unprecedented aggression. If these small beings wanted to fight, it would show them the true meaning of cosmic hunger. The first battle of the new war was about to begin. The moment had finally arrived. Engineer Kyung-suk stood at his control station aboard the New Dawn. his hands steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. 3 days of careful preparation had led to this single instant. Around him, beings from 3 different species held their breath as he initiated the final sequence. "Stellar compression at maximum," he reported quietly. "Kepler 442 is ready for controlled collapse." Admiral Theon nodded grimly. "Fire the weapon." The dying star that had burned for billions of years suddenly began to collapse in on itself. But this was not the chaotic death of a natural stellar collapse. Human engineering guided every moment of the star's destruction, focusing all its remaining energy into a single, devastating beam of gamma radiation. The lance of pure energy shot across space at the speed of light, striking a massive tendril of the void harvest that had been slowly approaching their position. For 3,000 years, nothing had ever successfully damaged the entity that had consumed countless worlds. But now, for the first time in galactic history, part of the void harvest screamed. Communications Officer G1 watched her instruments with wide eyes as impossible readings flooded her screens. "Admiral, the entity is reacting. I'm detecting massive energy disturbances across 17 different star systems. It's pulling back from the impact site." Dr. Yunji rushed to confirm the readings, her heart pounding with excitement and terror. The gamma radiation disrupted its energy matrix. "We actually heard it." But their celebration was short-lived. The void harvest's response was swift and terrible, abandoning the slow, careful feeding that had marked its behavior for millennia. The entity lashed out with pure rage. Massive tendrils of dark energy swept across the galaxy like the arms of an angry god. Commander Yuna received the emergency transmission from her home system just as the new dawn prepared to fire its second stellar weapon. Her crystal body went dark with grief as she processed the message. "The Nexari core worlds are under direct attack. 3 star systems have gone completely dark in the past hour." The holographic display showed the true horror of the void harvests. Fury. Red warning lights appeared across the galaxy as the entity abandoned all restraint. Worlds that had survived for centuries behind their defensive shields suddenly found themselves facing direct assault from an enemy that no longer cared about preserving resources for later consumption. "It knows we can hurt it now," Admiral Tehan said grimly. "So it's trying to destroy everything before we can build more weapons." Captain Sunho coordinated the second wave of attacks from his position near the Vega system. "All ships, maintain formation. We fire the stellar weapons in sequence, just as planned. Do not break formation no matter what happens." The second star weapon fired, then the third, then the fourth. Each dying sun became a spear of concentrated energy hurling itself across space to wound the vast entity that had terrorized the galaxy. With each successful strike, more of the void harvest's attention focused on the source of this unexpected resistance. Dr. Hyan-Su worked frantically with surviving Nexari scientists to track the entity's movements. Despite the devastation happening across the galaxy, she could see a pattern emerging in the chaos. "Look at these readings," she called out to the mixed crew around her. "Every time we hit it with a stellar weapon, it pulls energy back from the outer systems to reinforce the damaged areas." Engineer Kyung-mi studied the data while monitoring the construction of additional weapons. "It's like a wounded animal pulling its limbs closer to its body. We're forcing it to consolidate." "Exactly," Dr. Hyan-Su replied with growing excitement. "We're herding it toward the galactic center, just like we planned. Each attack makes it pull back further." The battle continued for months. Entire civilizations watched their home stars flicker and die as the void harvest's rage swept across previously safe systems. The Keth volume lost 7 hive clusters in a single week. The Luminal Collective saw half their energy beings consumed as they tried to evacuate refugee populations. But something miraculous was happening in the systems where the entity had retreated. Engineer Kung-sik was the first to notice it during a routine sensor sweep. "Admiral, I'm getting strange readings from the Tau Ceti system." The star there has been dead for 40 years, but it's showing signs of renewed fusion activity. Communications. Officer Giwan confirmed the impossible news. It's true, sir. As the Void Harvest pulls its energy back, some of the stars it had been slowly draining are beginning to recover. They're reigniting. Word spread quickly through the remaining population centers. Dead worlds that had been frozen for decades suddenly felt the warmth of their stars again. Civilizations that had resigned themselves to extinction began to dare to hope. Admiral Taeyun watched the tactical display as more green dots appeared on the galactic map. Each recovered system represented billions of lives that might yet be saved. How many stellar weapons do we have operational? 147 complete, with another 53 under construction, Engineer Kyung-mi reported. The Prometheus array is at 60% completion. We need to hold the line until all weapons are in position, Dr. Yoonji added. The final phase of the plan requires every remaining stellar weapon to fire simultaneously. The war was far from over, but for the first time in 3 millennia, the galaxy's defenders were winning. The center of the galaxy had never seen a fleet this large. Admiral Taeyeon stood on the bridge of the final dawn, watching thousands of ships from dozens of species approach the most dangerous place in known space. The supermassive black hole called Sagittarius A** loomed ahead of them, its event horizon wrapped in the dark tendrils of the Void Harvest, like a cosmic spider claiming its web. I never thought I would see this many ships working together, Commander, Yuna said quietly from her position at the tactical station. Her crystal body reflected the light from the viewing screens, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. Around her, humans and aliens worked side by side at stations that had been hastily modified to accommodate different types of beings. The Void Harvest had made its final retreat to this place, the gravitational heart of the galaxy. Here, it fed directly on the massive energies swirling around the black hole, growing stronger with each passing moment. But it had also trapped itself. There was nowhere left to run. Dr. Yoonji checked her instruments one final time before reporting to the Admiral. Project Icarus is ready for activation. We have positioned stellar compression charges all around the black hole's accretion disk. The explosions should destabilize the event horizon and force the entity out of its hiding place. And if the calculations are wrong? Asked Captain Sunho, who commanded a squadron of the newest human warships. His weathered face showed the strain of months of constant battle. If we are wrong, the black hole will collapse completely and take half the galaxy with it, Dr. Yoonji replied honestly. But, if we do nothing, the Void Harvest will eventually consume what remains of galactic civilization anyway. Engineer Kyung-sek monitored the weapon systems from her station near the center of the bridge. She had grown thin and tired during the long campaign, but her eyes still burned with determination. All charges report ready for simultaneous detonation. The timing must be perfect, or the gravitational waves will tear our fleet apart. As the combined fleet moved into final position, something unexpected happened. The Void Harvest began to communicate, not with words or sounds, but with pure thought, transmitted directly into the minds of every living being in the fleet. The sensation was overwhelming, like having an ocean of ancient knowledge poured into a small cup. Communications Officer Guan gasped and pressed her hands to her temples as the entity's message filled her consciousness. Admiral, it's trying to explain itself. It says it's not evil. It claims to be some kind of cosmic protection system. The message became clearer as more minds worked together to interpret it. The Void Harvest revealed that it was created by an ancient civilization to prevent any species from becoming so advanced that they could threaten the stability of the universe itself. It saw itself as a cosmic immune system, removing civilizations that grew too powerful. It believes it's protecting the universe from us, Dr. Yoonji said, her voice filled with wonder and horror. In its view, advanced civilizations are a disease that must be controlled. Admiral Tayan stood slowly, his decision already made. He activated the fleet's communication system so his words would reach every ship in the massive formation. This is Admiral Tayan to all vessels? The entity claims to protect the universe by keeping us weak and divided. I say that growth and progress are the natural right of all living beings. Captain Minho took over the transmission, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's long struggle against the darkness. We choose to grow, to learn, to reach for the stars, even if it means taking risks. Any force that tries to keep us small and afraid must be overcome. The stellar weapons fired as one. Hundreds of compressed stars exploded simultaneously around the black hole's event horizon, each one releasing the energy of a complete stellar death in a single, focused burst. The gravitational effects were immediate and catastrophic. Reality itself seemed to scream as space-time twisted and convulsed around the black hole. The event horizon flickered, collapsed, expanded, then exploded outward in a cascade of pure creation energy that lit up the galactic core like a newborn sun. The Void Harvest's death cry was felt across dimensional boundaries. The ancient entity that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia dissolved into its component particles, its vast consciousness finally silenced. The dark tendrils that had wrapped around dead stars for centuries simply vanished, leaving only empty space behind. Engineer Kung Sik stared at her instruments in amazement as impossible readings flooded her screens. Admiral, the energy wave from the black hole explosion isn't destroying anything. It's creating new matter, new energy. Stars are forming in regions that have been empty for millions of years. Across the galaxy, the wave of creation energy swept through dead nebulae and empty space. Cold gas clouds that had been lifeless for eons suddenly began to glow as new stars ignited within them. Stellar nurseries that had been dormant since before the long night began started forming new solar systems. Communications. Officer Ji-Wan received reports from across the galaxy as the miracle unfolded. Sir, I'm getting transmissions from everywhere. Dead systems are coming back to life. New stars are forming in the outer rim. The galaxy is being reborn. The long night was ending, not with quiet survival, but with an explosion of new life and possibility that would echo through the cosmos for billions of years to come.